economy was in Ohio, and in Northeast Ohio's economy is roughly 40% of the state's economic output. So we're dealing with a pretty big chunk of the economy ourselves, and we both were taking over under pretty difficult circumstances, and we both, I think it was expected of both of us that we would emphasize economic policy. We both created economic development funds. We created something called the Western Reserve Fund, which is a $100 million fund, which is the largest fund of its kind of any city or county in Ohio. The governor formed JobsOhio. The differences between those initiatives, there's a couple differences. One is we operate from a philosophy that if it's public money, it is the public's business, period. The idea that economic development decisions that involve public subsidies or public money is best done in private or some type of opaque system is completely wrong, in my opinion, and very dangerous. And it is just a matter of time before that will be abused. That's the lesson I learned in terms of what my county went through in their previous administrations. It's what I saw even when I was an FBI agent investigating public corruption. Secretive government never works in the long run. You can come up with rationales for why it might be more convenient in this situation or that situation, but as a general principle, the public, journalists, legislators, interested parties have a right to know how their money is used. When we make an economic development loan, we go through 2 or 3 processes that are entirely public. So we have a panel that's made up mostly of private sector folks, either from the corporate community, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, that vet any of the proposals that come in the door. And that evaluation process and that approval process is done in public. We work with the Chamber of Commerce and some of their nominees on that body, and that is done publicly. And then it is brought to our county council, and that decision is made publicly. We've also been much more skeptical, and I think rightfully so, than the state has been about what I would call pay-to-stay initiatives. Perfect example happened in my county, actually. American Greetings, which is a large corporate partner that we have in the greater Cleveland area, is located in Brooklyn, Ohio, which for those of you that know it is a kind of small, middle-class, working-class community. Very, very deep roots in the community. It's been there. It's a multi-generational family-owned business, but it's a very large entity. And they basically said, we will leave if you don't give us an enormous subsidy. And the state came in and pledged $100 million of taxpayer-supported credits and funds in order to facilitate a move from Brooklyn, Ohio to Westlake, Ohio, which is a very wealthy suburb, kind of outer ring suburb in Cleveland. You have to be very careful with those kinds of deals because you're running the risk of creating an incentive for a company to say, if you don't give me taxpayer money, I will leave. Because for other corporations that haven't made that threat, they're then looking at their competitors and saying, why aren't I threatening to leave? Because the companies that threaten to leave are getting state subsidies. And we've been, I won't say that we have never, we will engage with a conversation with a company, but we look at that very skeptically, and I think we should. Now, Governor Kasich has gone to both extremes on that issue. On the one hand, they were handing out money very freely. Then later, he made some comments where he said that he was constantly being told by companies that they were thinking about relocating to Kentucky, and his response was, well, if that's what you're going to do, then have a nice trip. Well, that's not responsible either. But there's a way to evaluate those types of economic decisions in a very, I think, thoughtful and analytical way, and I don't think that the state has done that. The other thing that we've done is with our economic development programs, is we've put, I think, a greater emphasis than the state has on small to medium-sized local businesses. It's not all about the giant corporations. Certainly, they play a role. They're important. They're important employers, but most of the employment growth, according to most experts, in the next 25 years in Ohio is going to happen through small and medium-sized businesses, and we've put more of an emphasis on that than I think the state has.
I think from